preacher in the year of '01. When you think it's all over, it's only begun.
Well, howdy, pilgrims. We're back. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Preacher vs. Preacher, a comparison companion, where each week we get together and not only recap AMC's new series Preacher, but we directly compare it to the 1990s comic it's based on. So who are we? I'm Bill Sweeney, and I've got my buddy Dom.
What's up, guys? Welcome back.
I got my brother Bob.
Hey, everybody. What's up?
And you might know us from the Wicked Theory podcast. If not, that's fine. No big whoop. Mm-hmm. And if you want to go check that out, be our guest to go do that.
If you don't know us from the Wicked Theory podcast, get to know us on the Wicked Theory podcast.
We wouldn't mind. We certainly wouldn't mind.
Absolutely.
So we got a packed one here, folks. It finally happened. We finally saw the show. Damn it.
We did.
Wow.
Woo. 20 plus years in the making. I'm not good at math, but I think it's
I
something
think
like
it's
that.
1994 is when the comic first started.
Something around there.
94, 95. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that would make it about 22.
See?
Yeah.
See? He's good at the math.
He's good at math.
22.
He's good at math.
Well, after I ran out of fingers and toes, I figured it's got to be two more.
There you go. It's always two more than you have in life, right?
I use my eyeballs.
All right. So very good. Very good. Well, before we go nuts, let's get to official business out of the way. And then we're going to get to everybody's favorite thing, Preacher, which we will definitely dig in deep. So if you want to email us, you can email us at pvp@wickedtheory.com.
That's
Or Cam, I guess. Where's that, Cambodia?
Com.
Yeah. Don't send it to Cam.
I think Cambodia would be .cam.com.
Probably. But just do us a favor, and why not sign that with your Twitter handle if you're on Twitter. We'd love to give you a shout out in your email for your Twitter account. Why not? Nobody does it on our other show. No one puts their Twitter accounts. No. Well, we know everybody that emails us on that show anyway. So also, you can follow us on Twitter at Preach vs. Preach. We're on Stitcher, iTunes, Google Play Music. Do us a favor, subscribe, rate, and review. And those that do give us a little review, we'll be trying to use those for promos. I had one going around last week. And we'll try to shout out those people in a couple of minutes. I got a couple of people. We got a couple of reviews.
Cool.
And then and again, if you want to hear from us, you search us on there, the Wicked Theory podcast. We'll get this info again maybe later on if we remember. In case you missed it, maybe grab a pencil. We have a couple other things maybe you want to write down. Like the first one here, that's kind of a big announcement. We're going to do something special next week when the show is in its first rerun. Which is an odd thing to say. Yeah. But the regular Preacher next week is going to be on they're going to rerun the first episode because it's Memorial Day weekend. That's what the networks like to do. Game of Thrones does the same thing. They'll be on a rerun. So what we're going to do is, I think about 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, we're going to go live on Mixlr.com, Mixlr. And that's basically just a little place where we can go live, broadcast. There's a little chat room. You guys can come in there, throw questions in, and just hang out with us. It's going to be obviously a looser format. We're going to try and really just talk to you guys a little bit, have a little bit of a back and forth.
Yeah, we'd really like it to just be, just get some questions. If you have any questions for us about the show or the comic, or you have comments about the show or the the comic, and we'll just love to talk about it.
Yeah, I think of it like an extension of the email or the Twitter accounts kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like we can actually have a discussion.
Since there's no episode, there'll be nothing to compare. So
fair enough.
We'll need to bullshit about
for this
something.
reason. It'll be a little bit more of a get to know you kind of thing.
Absolutely, and it's a thing where it's like what would we put out that week anyway on Monday. So what we'll do is we can record that and put that up for anybody who misses it. But we really would love some of our regular tweeters and twatters, if that's a word, to come hang out and chill with us. So I
think you can get Mixlr on your iPhone also.
Yeah. Oh, it's totally.
I think there's an iPhone app.
Okay.
There might be an Android app.
It's definitely an Android app.
Okay.
That I know for sure. And actually, no, I think it's both ways because I'm pretty sure I have it on my tablet too, on my iPad.
Same goes for iPhones.
Yeah, pretty much, right? That's pretty universal.
Yeah.
So find us on there. Go to mixlr.com/wicked-theory. We're going to be using the other account from the other show because I'm not going to pay money for 2 accounts, no for nothing. But we'll rebrand it for this occasion. It'll say Preacher vs. Preacher Live or something sexy to that effect.
Yes.
But that's a special new plan that we're going to wing it. We're going to see how that goes. So we look forward to seeing you guys there. We got wings, and we're
I
gonna.
wasn't paying attention.
But we're gonna fly, Bob. And if we gotta carry you,
Oh,
that's
no
problem.
I thought you were talking about buffalo wings.
No. It's Red Bull. It gives you wings. All right. So, just a reminder at this point about the spoiler warning stuff. A little bit of a change. You'll notice in a moment that this show works on the premise, of course, that you have either read the books or you just don't give a shit or a damn about the spoilers, and you're totally cool with us revealing story points and having them totally ruined for you.
Right. Even those that might be in the future.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Like, we just don't know where you, the listener, might be in reading the graphic novels. So,
or if you've even read any of it.
Right. So we're going to kind of try and tiptoe at times, but hey.
Yeah, we just can't necessarily help sometimes trying to compare something.
Yeah.
And pulling a point from further along in the storyline.
And because they're pulling stuff from different areas in this whole story.
Right. Yeah, that's going to get confused. That's going to confuse it even more.
Exactly. So, what we're going to do is that. Well, here's a general warning: is this? While we'll try not to get too heavy into things too fast in the episodes, there will come a point later where you'll hear this bell, and then from there on, you're in Spoilerville. You're in a whole new town, kids. We implore you to have at least read the first book before going any further than that. That's the one thing I think with season 1 we can say to people is that as long as you've read book 1, you're fairly covered, at least at this point.
Right.
I mean, we haven't seen episodes 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, you know what I mean?
But we also haven't gotten into the material that's actually in the books yet.
Well, that's the thing we're going to come to discuss later on is how far does this first episode actually bring us into anything anyway.
Right.
So we really want you to enjoy the scenes and the moments from the story firsthand by reading the story. That's like our mantra kind of in a way.
Right, yeah. Read the story because this is going to be a case of the source material is going to end up seeming quite a bit different, I think.
Well, yeah.
By the end of the run,
That's for sure.
Then what we have on the TV show.
Mm-hmm.
So you're gonna want to compare. And you're gonna want to know that source material.
Yeah, I think it's going to come in handy. So also now into some notable news stuff real quick. If people are interested, if they're podcast listeners, I actually stopped to listen to Vertigo Comics actually has their own little podcast now. It's fairly promo stuff. But one of the interesting things is they actually had on a priest on this week who's actually done exorcism. Real thing, real dude,
Okay.
and Catholic priest. And he's done some exorcism work. He works in that chapter of Archdiocese. I forget exactly which branch or whatever, but that's his gig, and it was kind of some interesting stuff. And they actually, the other reason is that they kind of go into Preacher and stuff. That overall, during that episode, they talk about Preacher, and a couple of the editors are there, and they talk about the comics. So if you're a big fan of the comic, it might be something for you to check out. You don't have to listen to the whole thing. Eventually, after they get past the Preacher stuff, well, even though that there is a Preacher there, they start promoting other things.
Right.
All right. So one of the things I did, I figure we'll use this to segue in now that we had a off discussion about it, is I did a poll real quick on the account, on the Twitter account of, so now that you've seen episode 1 of Preacher, what did you think? So before we get into our opinions, here's, of 36 votes.
Your opinions.
So here's how many people actually, well, I don't have the breakdown on this screen, but anyway, so 53% said they loved it, 42% said, I'll judge after some more. 6% said, okay, meh, not for me, pass. Like I kind of blended all those into. And 0% said that they hated it or that the show messed it up, like didn't do a good version.
Right.
So, not for nothing, but that's like, obviously the 0 is not 0, but right. I mean, this kind of reflects what I've been seeing in the hashtag Preacher feed over Twitter, is that the general consensus is that most people loved it, even if a certain contingent of them didn't really feel like they understood it.
Right. Yeah,
that seems
I saw
to be
a lot of people like, I have no idea what's going on, but it's bloody and gory and it's crazy and I fucking love it, so I'm going to just continue watching it.
You got me.
I can't turn it off even though I want to.
I'm sold.
Yeah. But no, that's definitely a good, it's definitely a good summary of how I'm engaging people on Twitter also. I feel like a lot of people loved it. A lot of people were kind of iffy about it. Mm-hmm. I didn't really see too many people shitting on it, although I did see a few that said that they couldn't really stick with it. They had to turn it off. They couldn't stay with it.
And the ones I saw seemed to be coming from like this one of these purist kind of standpoints where it's like, no, they just fucked it up. Like they're not really throwing
people
bones out.
That were very pure about the comic.
Yeah, and they're not giving like examples. Yeah. They're like, oh, it just messed up, this messed up, this messed up. And I do have some tweets I pulled.
It's not on any of the source material.
That's the thing.
That's a problem for people, and it's a very slow burn.
Yeah. So it's totally that. It's totally a thing where these certain types of people just have to kind of adjust to it. So here's some tweets that I pulled. that are most of these are real tweets, but I didn't take everybody's name because I'm not starting a war or anything. But I pulled some of the negs because not for nothing, I was reading a lot of the positive stuff, and there are some fair points kind of buried in here. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But those are probably points we'll get to anyway. So starts with they fucked up Preacher worse than I ever thought they could have. Holy fucking shit, did that suck? You know what wasn't worth staying up till midnight before my first day of work? Preacher. They tried to take its time. It was really lame doing so. These are all separate as I'm hitting them. Preacher on AMC. What an unstylish, unfunny, dull adaptation of an amazing comic series. Boo. Preacher was absolutely flat. Won't live up to the comics. Was gone about the wrong way, and the world they wrote is not even close. Now, I have bones with every one of these things. I'm not just throwing these out there because I agree with all of them. It attempted to add more to the story and lost all its guts doing so. I don't know about some of these. So action, however, is not Preacher's strong suit, plus some odd transition and goofy scenes that clash with the overall atmosphere and style. I feel like that's got some...
That I could agree with.
That I kind of could feel like, it's a pilot. It's trying to figure out its tone and how to balance all that stuff. And so I can see how, even for me, like that tone is stronger than I feel like it comes out in the comics.
100%.
So this last couple here. I didn't read the Preacher comic, but thought last night's premiere was chilling, interesting, and a bit confusing. I'm transitioning us out into better stuff here. Mm-hmm. And then...
you sure?
Well, maybe. I don't remember exactly the last couple. So can a fan look at Preacher as a loose adaptation, an alternate universe, a series of deleted scenes, or an Ultimates style reboot? Maybe. Pretty much throwing it out there when you think about something like that, it's like, yeah, you can take this any way you want to, really. And then last one, which is one that I liked, is all caps. And I retweeted this one for sure. Cassidy motherfucking Mary Poppinsing his way out of a goddamn airplane, which I thought was great. Which I didn't really catch him grab it.
Spoiler alert!
Spoilers! Oh yeah, wow! I'm not past the spoiler zone here, but yeah, he grabs an umbrella. I didn't even see him grab it. I just see him.
We watched the same. TV
well,
screen.
I didn't when he goes out. I didn't see him grab it.
Well, as he's leaving, he's like, "Oh wait."
Yeah,
and he reaches back in.
For some reason, I didn't even notice it. Yeah. So that's it for some of those tweet sound-offs from random peoples out there.
Anonymous.
Just to give anonymous peoples who will stay anonymous. But I feel like, there's a smattering of... it's a love-hate kind of thing.
There's some fair points in all of those.
Yeah, and I think we're going to be glazing over, hitting those as we go along.
Yeah, we're going to have to because I feel a certain way about some of those.
Yeah, I'm sure you do. Oh, I know for a fact you do. So we're going to get to that. So the last thing I want to do for shout-outs and stuff like that is I just want to hit the customer reviews real quick on iTunes and say thank you to some people. Zaza Joey says, this is what the fans want/need, just as AMC is about to change television forever. Pat Houlihan, he says, I wanted to thank you guys for an amazing, awesome podcast on my favorite comic book of all time. I'm feeling the same excitement for the show as all of you. You provide immense description and humor along with your history of the book. Keep up the awesome job. And then Son of a Preacher, who says, these guys know their stuff. I wonder if they'll start writing the continuation. I'd still listen/read. They're that good. So I want to thank them and anybody else who's going to go out there and go onto iTunes and give us a rating and a little review. We more than appreciate it.
Yes.
And the only way I can show you how much is just to give you a little shout out on here. But go do that, kids. Go do that. So,
you do that.
Now that we are this far in and we are all caught up with that stuff.
Some strong feelings.
We do have emails too. But I have a feeling that, what, you want to X them?
No, I'm saying at the end.
Push them to the end? Because that's what I was thinking is that I don't know what the email is going to have in them. If it's going to be spoiler stuff. So, maybe we should just kind of do that and say that the emails we're going to push to the end because we just don't know what is in them. So now we're going to go into the spoiler stuff, and so as people know that this sound effect here is going to let you know every week. No, we are not playing around, kids.
We are not.
No.
We're here for real.
We're here for realsies. So this is it. We're in the spoiler zone. Let's talk first impressions real quick and kind of really, are we super impressed? Are we? How are we feeling, team?
Kick us off, Bob.
General impressions. You walked away liking it. You're going to come back for more?
I'm going to come back for at least 2 more.
Okay. All right.
But
it's got to do some work for you.
Yeah, because everything, all the differences I was okay with.
Mm-hmm.
I was still all in until Jesse gets up to that podium.
At the end?
At the end,
okay.
and he starts talking to everybody, and then he changes his mind and says, I'm going to stick around and try and help you poor suckers.
Right.
And I was just like...
And with that move...
I was like, no. Absolutely not. That was the wrongest thing right there.
Yeah.
Personally for me, that's how I felt. And... Because... You want to drag it out, but in Anvil, you want to drag it out in the beginning. But that just told me that this was going to be like Fear of the Walking Dead.
Well, I think
because now what are we going to do? We're going to have to see him playing around with the people in town.
Yeah.
This is going to be how we see his power.
Right.
Which, by the way, I really don't like the way that they use that power this episode.
All right, let's keep it to...
I thought that was...
We're going to hit all these points as these beats, as story beats. I figure what we'll do is as we go through the story beats, we'll stop and pretty much be like, all right, this worked for me, this didn't. So we'll just try to hit some general stuff.
Yeah, all right. So bottom line is I think that was a mistake.
The bottom line really is that you feel like the show's... No, it's all right, but for you, it needs more.
Yeah, it's got to move better. When I first, all right, you know what? I'll leave it at that for now because we're going to continue to talk. So
cool. How about you, D?
So I enjoyed the episode. Obviously, we all understand that it's a pilot, so I wasn't expecting it to be perfect out of the gate. Anyways, am I 100% down and happy with all the changes they've made? Not sold on it all yet, but I can come to grips with it. But at this point, as a huge fan of the comic, I'm okay with changes. It's just make the changes feel like Garth and Steve would have made those changes in their, preliminary writing of the comic.
Right.
Just make it feel like Preacher. As long as it doesn't feel like something completely different.
Right.
I'm okay with it.
And at this point, not feeling it's completely different, but it's different.
I think the fact that, if you know anything about the comic, you know that it's ultimately a road story.
Okay. Yeah.
And right now that's not where it's at, and we've heard from the showrunners that that's not going to be the case for another season. So I'm totally okay with that at this point because I know what it is. I'm not expecting anything.
You've seen the map in a way, so you know
crazy.
What's kind of coming.
So I was happy with the pilot.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely wasn't perfect.
Right.
But it was good, and I'm gonna watch the whole season regardless. I'll hate watch it if I don't like it.
Right, you'll barrel through it.
But no, I have a great feeling about it. I think it's gonna find itself over the next few episodes.
Okay.
And I think it's just gonna really shake out to be a great show.
That's kind of, for me, my general impression is that it's bumpy. It's bumpier than I would have wanted a first episode of the show to be, even with like this format kind of thing that they're doing. I kind of agree with Bob too, with that last moment really set in this whole a little bit of a thing where like, here's the hook for the season, and so that's like the trajectory for the season. My hope still lies in the buzz and the hints that we've heard that season 1 is about building Jesse and this little setup to the point where the comic book really starts. So. I'm hoping it's not too slow a burn. I'm hoping they keep me captivated, even if it's going to be about some town people and Quincannon, that, it's just going to be engaging enough where I'm comfortable. Like, I don't end up feeling like I'm just biding my time till it gets to where I want it to get to.
Right.
So in a nutshell, I'm good with it. I'm cool with it. I like a lot of the things they did overall. I'm kind of happy. You know what I mean? I'm kind of happy. Like you guys said, not 100%.
Right.
Different things hit me different ways. But what we're going to do...
Hey, I got to say one last thing. When I watched it last night, I enjoyed it much less than I did today when I watched it on AMC.com without commercials, as opposed to when I watched it last night.
Really?
With about 40 minutes of commercials.
So last night, with the breaks, you felt like the viewing, for whatever reason, hit you better?
No, I'm saying today
was better.
Without commercials was much, much better.
Right.
I just felt like it flowed into each.
Well, you could stay immersed because there were no commercials taking you out of it.
Right, so. and I felt that the pacing last night when I watched it with commercials just felt off a bit because they're throwing so much at you and there's so much character development without any answers up front,
right.
which fortunately for us as people who know what the end game is,
right? We didn't
have that cliffhanger like everyone else did on basically everything that happens with all the the main characters in the episode.
It's a fair point. There's a lot of people out there like, I don't know what happened. I feel like even though they set stuff up, like they didn't set it up, and it turns out it's like one of those shows where it's like, it's more of a mystery kind of setup, but things are going to unfold and unfurl and be revealed. So like, yeah, it's enough to satiate the comic book fans and keep them around and stuff like that, and keep them happy to a degree, and at the same time build it up in a way where like it gets these other people jazzed.
They keep doing the stuff that they're doing.
Yeah.
They did with this episode.
Yeah,
they're gonna lose all the comic book fans.
Well, I mean,
it's gonna be too slow a burn. It's gonna be too much. It's gonna feel like too much of. Let's see how awesome we can write Preacher.
Yeah,
No,
I can see
as opposed to just saying,
what,
let's just write Preacher.
Yeah,
and that's what I think. That's what everybody wants.
Yeah,
and I don't think people feel like they're going to get that.
Yeah,
I know that I feel like this season is going to be mostly wasted on me.
Yeah,
I'm going to watch 3, and I'm going to decide how I feel about it overall.
Sure.
And if I continue with the show, it's because I'll be watching this. I'll be watching the show because I'll be doing this.
Our show. Right. Okay.
So, and that'll ultimately be the reason that I'm watching. I feel like that already is the way it's going to go for me.
Right. I can hear that. So the only thing I will say, maybe to that point, which is a thing, is that, it's a pilot. A lot of shows get better after the pilot. They find themselves sometimes,
Right. Pacing gets better because this pacing was shaky.
Yeah. And it's also, this one was directed by Seth and Evan. And not to knock Seth and Evan, but they're not TV directors. They're hardly even movie directors. They've done a couple of things. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying these guys aren't incredibly talented. I'm not saying there's not incredibly talented stuff peeking through this episode, production-wise. But it just, you could feel the bumpiness, and you got to wonder, is it Seth and Evan? Is it rough on the edges because they didn't flesh it out enough? Whatever it may have you. But all valid points coming from both of you. I feel like, we just don't know where it's going yet, because so much of this first one was setting up stuff that we are not familiar with.
We aren't really going to know where things are going to go for at least 3 episodes.
Yeah.
That's why I have a 3-episode rule when I watch a show. I don't just watch the pilot because, like everyone's saying here, it's not going to be the best representation of the show.
Right.
It's just going to be the one that gets some attention to get on TV.
Right, exactly.
Most of the time, anyway.
Most of the time, yeah.
With this show, it's a little different, but...
Yeah. Most of the time, what I find with pilots is that there's a certain amount of pace and tempo that is higher because they have to cram so much in. Mm-hmm. So sometimes you think like, oh, this show's going to be like a nonstop roller coaster ride every week. Mm-hmm. And then episode 2, it's put on the brakes and let's settle in. And it's like, oh, man, I thought I was getting something with a different rhythm. Like, you know what I mean? Not just a tone, but like a different speed and shit. But it's just because they're jamming so much shit. So let's crack it open, kids. Let's really crack in deep. We've got a quick break. We got a breakdown of scenes, and we're going to kind of go through them. Now, the whole dang thing, it starts obviously in outer space. This is the 5-minute clip, basically, that we all saw online.
Yeah.
Very retro kind of looking thing going on, very 60s or even 50s kind of style. Mm-hmm. I guess it was just to kind of throw people off guard. They used such a, like...
retro?
Yeah, retro and low budge kind of thing to be like, oh, this might get a little
thanks for showing me that continent, that giant continent that looked like Africa, and then letting me know in giant letters that it actually is Africa.
You're right. And that there's no specific places within it either.
Yeah, even as a person who went to school in New York City. Yeah. I can recognize the continent of Africa, so
I mean the scale
I don't need
of
the giant letters.
The scale of it on the globe, I think, is a little bit off.
I mean, but my current age, I need the giant letters, but I don't need the giant letters on the thing of Africa.
Right. The TV's big; I can see it already. It's
a 32-inch TV. We watched it on a 55?
Yeah, sure. No, and We'll talk more about the viewing when we get to emails after the breakdown here. But all right, so it goes to Africa, and we see a preacher out there. He's talking to his congregation. Obviously, this comet that we were following in space that we know to be Genesis, an entity known as Genesis, swarms its way into him, takes him over for a second, basically blows him up. And then, but right before it does, he says, he yells at all his parishioners to be quiet.
Be quiet.
And this really cool kind of echoey thing. Now, jumping ahead to the end of the episode, when it's finally in Jesse, and Jesse uses the power for the first time. Here's a little theorizing on my part, is like, I think that the reason Jesse really didn't have the voice, or it's not fully acclimated to him, maybe. You know what I mean? One of the things they might be doing here is making it a thing where it doesn't really, because in the comic,
I think we saw what they were trying to tell us is going on. I think we saw it fly into the guy in Africa, right, and it just came out of nowhere, boom, knocked him down. Then we seen it somewhere else, and it comes to the person slow.
Right.
That's why it came to Jesse. It came to Jesse slow.
Creeps up on him.
Right, creeps up on him. So maybe it learned, because it blew up the guy in Africa, blew up Tom Cruise.
Right.
Thank you. By the way. And then there was someone else along the way too, and then it ran into Jesse.
Oh yeah, it was up in Russia. Right. And then when it does get to Jesse, it does this creep up.
It creeps up. So maybe it's introducing itself into Jesse, like slowly, to not overwhelm the human host.
That, you know what? That's actually a fairer point than I had in my head, where it was just sizing him up. But the whole thing of it's trying to not explode all these people.
Right,
like one of these is.
Well, you got to remember, it's.
I just thought that
basically it's a heavenly being.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I don't think it really wants to kill anybody.
No.
Well, when you think about what Genesis is, the offspring of a demon and angel, and Jesse Custer, the character, how he's pretty much pure evil and pure goodness.
Right.
I just took it as, that's a great point that I didn't even think of, Bob, but the way I took it as was just that, when he took those other guys' bodies, he was just like, fuck it, I don't need you, so I'm out. And he just blew them up.
Yeah, he was just running around
so
like...
the reason why... Boom. Yeah. Right, the reason why he's able to live in Jesse's body and Jesse's body is able to even handle him is because they're kind of mirror images of what he knows.
Right. I think that's the idea too, is that it finally found its perfect settled host. So let's go back into the timeline. So it goes to Africa and it blows up this one. Mm-hmm. But we cut now to Jesse waking up in the morning. We get to hear our little Willie Nelson.
We do.
We here at Preacher vs. Preacher, we prefer the Johnny Cash.
We do.
That's because we just like to be different. We knew that everybody else would use Willie.
We prefer the Man in Black.
That's true.
Rest in peace.
But, mostly because everybody else was going to use Willie. So I was like, we're going to use Johnny. Because Johnny's just got some good actual shredding in it. What's that?
And Alice in Chains is on that.
Yeah, that's a whole, I don't, some guys from Alice in Chains and a few other groups. Go back to our episode 1 for the full credit on that, because I cannot recall it at this moment. So, so he wakes up and we see that he's got some scars on his back. Which we had seen in the preview stuff. We get no inclination as the episode goes on what that's about, but obviously it's old because they're scars.
Right. And then the tattoo.
And then the tattoo, he's got some tattoo stuff on him.
Right, he's got the tattoo in the center of his back. Yeah. Between the shoulder blades.
And we don't really get a good look at that. I don't know if maybe that's something Cooper's already got or not.
Yeah, I don't know, but it was tribal in pattern, so it could have had something to do.
But his past. Fair enough.
And it probably doesn't, because if it did, then be like, what are they adding to it now?
Right. So we get a shot.
They shouldn't be adding that.
We get a shot of the Ratwater whiskey bottle, which we all know is, if you're up to date, is where Santa Killers is from. That's his town, Ratwater.
I'm not sure if it's where he's from, but it's
part of that story.
It's part of the story. That's the town he goes to.
Oh, maybe
to get the medicine for his wife.
Right. Fair enough. So then we.
Yes, I read it 20 years ago, and I still know it.
Well,
no, I actually did read the Santa Killers over again.
There you go. Right. So that's fresher for you. And then he goes over to his church. He takes a walk to his church. He fixes the sign, which is open your holes and your asses and your holes to Jesus.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
to God.
And then so then we go to inside the church. He's doing his sermon, and he's really not any good at it. He dropped a piece.
He doesn't care.
Well, I don't know. I don't think as much as he doesn't care. Is that he's like, it doesn't. It's not sticking. It's not working. He doesn't have his heart in it.
Like, that's what I mean. He doesn't care.
I don't mean he doesn't care. He wants it to, but he can't make it work. I think there's a difference between like not caring and not being able to accomplish your goal.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
And I don't know how much the piece of paper that he drops when he's getting out of bed is supposed to be like, oh, that he didn't really do the ruffling, like, oh, where is that page, and that's what threw him off. But maybe that's what that was supposed to be, because they don't go back to, oh, where's that thing you dropped at any point in the episode. So I kind of figured that's what that was supposed to be. I'm going to blame Seth and Evan on that one for not making it a little clearer on what's going on there. So so basically, like, it's this whole thing where he's no good at it, and even as he's trying to say, hey, don't mess with the sign, the organ player comes in on his last word and chops him off, which was a funny little moment. But then we cut to the cookout, the Sunday Mass, Sunday Church cookout, where everybody's hanging out and having a good old time and shooting squirrels and whatnot, shooting him like Lincoln, I think got him right in the back of the head like Lincoln or some shit.
Shot him like Abraham Lincoln, right in the back of the head.
And then, so...
He's a good old boy.
So we follow this little kid as he's going over to go talk to Jesse. Jesse's actually having his ears chewed off by a guy named Ted, who just wants to chew his ear the whole episode.
Every minor little detail.
My mother, why is she calling me from Florida about these cheese sandwiches? Why do I have to get her approval for what's on my cheese sandwiches and stuff?
I prefer Swiss. Why can't I have Swiss?
I'm a grown man. He's like, you just gotta figure it out. I don't know. You gotta go burn the traffic.
You gotta talk to your ma.
Yeah, well, basically what he says is you got to go talk to her. You got to open your heart and just, let her know, tell her how you feel, which is we'll obviously get to. Open
your heart to her.
Which we'll obviously get to. So now the kid actually is able to help Jesse because Jesse's like, listen, Ted, I got to talk to this kid here. He's helping me. Or whatever. He's like, I got to talk to him. And then as Ted walks away, one of the best faces that he makes the whole episode is this eye roll he does as Ted finally walks away. It's like, oh, Jesus Christ. So, and obviously the kid's like, here's a beer for you, preacher. And he's like, oh, kid, you know me pretty well. So the kid sits down, and the kid basically tells him, I want you to beat up my dad. I want, I know you used to do stuff back in the days, and I want you to kick my dad's ass. Now, this is one of the first hints we get to really seeing anybody here knowing about his past and stuff and what goes on. I think one of the things that it's it's showing that obviously Jesse has been here a little while. I forget. I think at some point they say it's maybe about a year. I think somebody says 2 years he's been back.
It was the sheriff.
Okay, right. You've been back 2 years, right? So
back a year or two, I think.
So the word is spread that wherever he was a tough guy and shit, and so the kid's like, we've seen it in the promo, but the kid's like, I want you to hurt him. He's like, how bad you want me to hurt him? You want me to fucking key his car? What do you want me to do, kid? And so basically it works out where the kid's like, hey, he's roughing up my mom. He's beating my mom, and he's like, well, I think it pretty much leaves where he's like, I'll figure out something. And the kid's like, yeah, you ain't gonna do nothing really. Right.
Well, first he gives the kid the rundown about how things would go if he went to deal with his dad violently.
Right.
And if he really wants him to do that, because then I might do that for you.
Yeah.
But then he says, what would be better, and what I'd like to do for you is, if you talk
talk to the sheriff or whatnot, or have a conversation.
Mention to talk to this point. Why don't you talk to somebody else?
So that's all going to come back in a little while. Now we jump to coming out of that. We go to the rally or the mascot thing at night, which I didn't really follow exactly. What was the mascot being changed from?
It was some kind of the.
I mean, I know they were changing the legendary one of the town to something
so it was
more
kind of like
correct or something.
It was kind of like a Washington Redskins
situation, right?
Situation where it was a Native American term.
And they do this thing where they cut to them and they're like brawling in slow motion in the costumes, like they're actually literally going at it and shit. It's kind of funny. But so basically that's a scene so that we can have Jesse and Sheriff Root meet for the first time. Now here's another character that's obviously changed to a degree from the comic.
Quite a bit.
Very good actor.
A great actor. Yeah, it's almost like you'd be ashamed to use him.
Yeah, if you've seen anything that's any good on TV, you've seen this actor.
W. Earl Brown.
Yes.
Famous for Deadwood. And, well, amongst much else. So basically what he tells Jesse, though, is like, because they have a conversation with Jesse. He's like, I really think maybe you should get involved over there and help them out and do something with Donnie and Betsy. Yeah. He's smacking her up, and he's like, if there's a complaint filed, I'll do it. So, it's obviously this guy don't give a shit about giving a shit. And it's just gonna, that's the more or less the dynamic of him. And then he pretty much says, yeah, well, you wouldn't want to upset your, your constituency of squirrels shooting, whatever, racist rednecks, drunks, something like that.
Something along those lines.
And that's when Root's like, listen, buddy, like, you're back in our town and all, but, I'm watching you, basically. He's like, you've been away, and since you came back, I haven't been a big fan of that idea, not one bit. And pretty much we get that kind of introduction. But in the meantime, he says, hey, at the start of it, he was like, hey, come by my house. Come see my kid. My kid wants to talk to you. My kid, Eugene.
Yeah, Eugene.
Wow. So from there, which was a good scene and all that, I really didn't have any problems with that or anything. As much as some of these things are, adding to everything, for the most part, some of them, they work on their own. They're okay. Like, it's more of like, I think when we have problems with some of this shit, it's like how some of it, like the whole thing adds up. But let's keep it rolling. We cut to 30,000 feet in the sky.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh, indeed. Okay. So here's a whole bunch of shit that, we might try to break down here for some people for a little while because there was some confusion I saw online. So if anybody's not catching it from the rewatch, what we see is Cassidy on his plane, and he's with a bunch of guys coming from a bachelor party. If that wasn't clear, where they're coming from, what's going on. And it seems like Cassidy's, as far as he knows, he's found his way into their little circle, and he's taking a flight with them to, I forget exactly where, right. But
I think
might as well be Cambodia.
Right.
But I don't remember the exact location. But they
were supposed to be going in the opposite direction.
Well, that's the main point of it, right? So what happens is that Cassidy is having fun, doing a whole bunch of coke, smoking weed, and drinking and whatnot. Goes to use the bathroom, and in the bathroom, he finds a Bible that's like rewritten, drawn, and scribbled in like a Charles Manson fanboy would have done, and that just tips him off. Gives him, makes him raise his eyebrow, and okay, that's what this is.
Maybe we got a wacko on board.
So comes back out and proceeds basically to fucking smash the bong over one guy's head and just take out everybody else.
Right, and it turns out they're all like holding ancient weapons.
Well, that's the thing we were talking about. We were talking about this at work.
Spears included.
Yeah, and so the way we kind of were breaking it down was it's obviously that these guys, because he says, oh, how did you guys find me at one point in this whole altercation? So it's obviously that these guys are some kind of Catholic zealots.
Yeah, Van Helsings.
Van Helsings
or
whatnot.
It wasn't until that line that made me, because I was confused as to why they had gone into that whole Kingsman type fight scene where there was just no reason for everyone to be fighting like that.
At that level, skill set.
With like random medieval weapons being ripped off the wall of a plane.
For the first, when it first started for me, it was like, what the hell? Because I'm still like trying to figure out what the deal was with the Bible,
right?
Because it changed so fast. Because once he realized what was going on with the Bible, he was taken off. He was out of that restroom and into a fight in the blink of an eye.
Right.
So you have no time to really think about the Bible, what the meaning of the Bible is.
Right. So now on the rewatch, we're putting it together, and it's like maybe these guys are the Grail, and maybe not, but there's enough there that it could be in the end. And but the main thing is that what we deduced from thinking about it is that, these guys figured the safest way, because Cassidy is super strong, as we come to see later scenes and stuff like that, is the easiest way to subdue him is probably just trick him. So it's get him wrecked, have him think we're going somewhere as a party, and it sucks for us that he found the book and happened to look out the window and realize which direction we're actually going.
Right.
And that tipped our hand.
Right. Get him drunk, toss him out the plane when the sun comes out, and be done with it.
Or wherever they were going to bring him, maybe.
Right.
But point being that... well, that's actually probably a good point. Just throw them out in direct sunlight.
If the whole point is to kill the vampire, you just...
Yeah.
That's good. Now the sun's out, he's passed out, we just toss him out the friggin' door.
Not a bad point. Don't know what they were going to do. And it kind of explains why they had some old-fashioned weaponry laying around in a way. I don't know about the one axe being mounted on the wall.
Right, yeah.
But,
and where'd the spear come from?
Yeah, you know what I mean? And
I didn't really have a chance to examine the decorations.
They were going there looking for a fight with a vampire, so...
I get that you didn't really want to have guns flying around on an airplane. That I kind of get. But
it was
anyway...
a private jet, though. There wasn't any... It's not like there was any...
No, I'm talking about depressurizing the cabin and stuff like that by putting a hole in. You know what I mean? That's the main thing you don't want to...
Good point.
Every once in a while I get one. So with that,
Actually,
Cassidy...
Mythbusters tested that, and they couldn't depressurize the cabin with a handgun.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's probably the walls are too thick anyway. Or did they shoot out the window?
They tried shooting out the windows and shooting out the fuselage.
There you go. Very good. See that kid? You learned something. So what happens next is basically, so Cassidy goes over to the pilot that he threw half a wine bottle into and tips him forward and fills up a little jug of blood to go take with him as he goes out the side door.
Yeah.
And then
just as he leaves, he reaches back and
grabs that umbrella that we were talking about.
For a little Mary Poppins moment.
For a little Mary Poppins moment. That's the only thing he didn't do, though. He didn't pop it and then try and saunter down, which would have been funny, but probably a little too...
on the nose.
As if it's not over the top already, you know what I mean?
Right.
But it was cool. So that's our first meeting of Cassidy. Did that, obviously, you don't even get time to digest him as a character, but that worked for you in the moment. I mean, I feel like we all kind of, how do you not enjoy that whole scene because it's chaos and it's
it was
fucking
fun.
blood. It was fun.
It was a fun scene, and it was a good way to get introduced to the character.
Yeah. And I think that's
that's not the way it happened in the book.
Even though, we don't really find out how the hell he ended up in the town.
Actually, yeah, we do.
I mean, eventually.
No, because he meets Tulip when Tulip's on that hit that fails.
Right, but we don't know why he was ever there to begin with.
Right. Well, he was just in town. He was looking for his buddy that they ended up going looking for later on.
Well,
yeah,
because they go to Manhattan to meet that buddy. Is that the
Yeah.
buddy you're talking about? But they just go there because they think he's got some ways to help.
He might have been on the way to San Francisco to see his girlfriend.
You know what? It might actually come all clear later on when you get like Cassidy flashback stuff,
Right.
and it might kind of come full circle in a way. But I don't really recall. Somebody else can write in. Somebody can write in and fill that in for me.
Right. Well, I'm sure Steph. She's probably up to book 5 already. So
Yeah, that's fairly true.
That's Steph from Gotham Lights. She's a
Steph
friend
from
of ours
Gotham Lights.
on the other podcast, Wicked Theory.
There you go. So she's got an email coming up, just so you know. So there was drugs, the bachelor party, the bathroom Bibles. He figures it all out. He has to fight, the blood bottle, and then one of the guys tries to use holy water on him, and that should have been your tip at home, kids, if you didn't know what was going on right there, that he was a vampire. Like, who pours water on somebody and thinks he's going to do something?
The spears and everything else wasn't a clue.
There you go.
The holy water should have been a dead giveaway.
There you go. Then he jumps out, and then we cut to the diner where the ketchup splat.
Great shot.
Which was a nice little touch.
Yeah, that was a nice little touch. But can we go to his landing?
No.
And we got to do this in order, huh?
Well, I mean, we keep jumping around.
Are we going to do every scene?
Yeah. Yeah, that's the whole point of a recap show.
Okay.
Wait, you got somewhere to be? Because you're home right now. I mean, I don't know where you got to go, but
I just want to make sure I can get to bed sometime today.
Yeah. I wouldn't keep you up. It's only 6:30 in the afternoon, buddy. So
7:15.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm off. 7:15.
Actually, that's 7 minutes fast.
What time you got to go to bed?
9.
9.
That's when I gotta go. That's when I gotta go to
What
bed.
time do you? What time do you go to bed? Let's put it like that. 11. It's like 11 o'clock. Okay, we're good. So anyway, here's how we're gonna do this now. So so he meets. It's obviously a scene where the girl who's the pianist, the organist, if that
Emily.
is Emily, she's got a little bit of a crush on him. We find out she's got some whatever's going on. Dead husband. She's got 3 kids. Blah 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 blah. It's another scene with Ted and the goddamn Ted guy who just keeps popping up everywhere. But then we pop back to Africa. And we see the 2 guys who we will continue to see pop up over and over and over again, who kind of come to these scenes after Genesis is gone, after the comet has come and left a scene.
I know who these guys are. I don't want to spoil it just yet because it could be a little bit of a different thing on the show as it is in the book. But I kind of feel like it was a bit of a hit and miss in this episode with these 2 guys. I know some shows can pull that off sometimes where it's like, you get a quick shot, like maybe once, maybe 3 times in an episode of a character or a group of characters.
Somebody doing something shady, you don't know who they are.
Exactly, and then you end the episode on them and it's like a cliffhanger. But this just didn't work for me. And I feel like a lot of people weren't fazed by it because it just wasn't.
There was nothing elaborated.
But no one knew who they were supposed to be.
Right, and I feel like that's
they were dressed completely different every single time you see them.
One of them, one of them at one point looked like Hair Star.
Right. Well, but the first time when they come out of the truck
Right.
in Africa, me and him were like,
So-
"Oh, is that her star?" And you know, obviously,
so
it's
that
not.
that immediately starts some confusion, and then it just carries on when you see them in all these different places.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I don't know how much. See, here's the thing. I think with some TV shows and movies, it's like this is a show or a movie where we don't hand anything to you, and I think that's what Preacher's going for. Where it's one of these ones where they want you to lean forward and pay attention. So it's not like, oh, like this is X, Y, Z. Like everything is going to be exposition. It's obviously one of these things where it's like this isn't S.H.I.E.L.D. where we're going to constantly recap everything. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but you usually don't you get
It
to
depends.
know who the people in question are.
Sometimes it depends on how much of a mystery they want to play it up as. You know what I mean? I think for this, it's like let's kind of establish everybody, but like they want to do this thing where they're kind of sprinkling some layering and a mystery kind of element where it's like, oh, things are going to unfold. You're going to learn as we go, kind of thing. Like one of these kinds of shows where it's like you have to like they want you to.
I totally got that aspect of it with the two guys.
I mean, obviously they
but
weren't handing
it
it to
just
you.
was a little bit of a hit and miss for me.
I feel like to have them be quirky at the last second. Like with he eats the tea bag.
Yeah.
I mean, we're jumping to the end here, but he eats the tea bag. That's a quirky, weird thing to kind of like wait to the last moment to get. I would have liked to maybe have seen them do something else odd, just to give them something else instead of just
Earlier
walking
in
to
the
scenes.
episode.
Instead of just walking up the scenes. But I think we get more of them next week, next episode, I should say.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty sure they both, build for 10 episodes each.
Oh,
so,
yeah. Pardon me. So anyway, right, so those guys just kind of pop up there, and we quickly move on. Jesse goes to Walter's house, and Tulip is there, but he doesn't really know until the last second. He goes to this guy Walter, who actually works at the diner. He didn't show up for work, so when he's at the diner, she's like, "Oh, why don't you?" Emily's like, "Oh, why don't you go by there, check on him?" So when he does, Walter's sleeping on the couch. He goes to get him a shirt or whatever. And then here's Tulip taking a shower. So at this point, we don't know if Walter is her uncle, her dad, a cousin, or whatnot, family or friend, but she's back. And Jesse's like, "Yo, I'm fucking leaving." He turns around and cuts tail real quick.
Yep.
And I don't know if it was just because he saw the big-ass gun, and that's all he needed to see was a gun and hear her singing.
Yeah.
It's probably more her singing.
Yeah.
It's probably some stupid song from back in their day or some shit. And he was like, "Oh, damn, I don't need to hear that. No, dang on." So he cuts out of there real quick. And then we cut to not that long ago, and it's the whole cornfield car chase scene where Tulip is fighting off some dudes in a car that's basically going wherever it wants to in a big old cornfield.
Right. Yeah, I assume that she was like in the middle of a hit,
Yeah.
and it got fucked up.
So, and ultimately what it turns out is that she's got some kind of storyline going on with a map. It gets mentioned a couple times, but that's what she was doing with those guys. She kills one of them. She gets a map out of his pocket. She's all about this map, And that's not in the book, right? No, there's no map chase for her.
No.
So what we are going to see here is that they've given her some kind of little side objective, and Cassidy's got some kind of little side thing going on too.
Which is...
Well, Cassidy having side things going on is part of his MO.
Yeah, and I think too, like him making that
Not
phone
so much
call.
Tulip.
Yeah, not so much Tulip. She's in the book. She's running from or hiding from something that's kind of like spilled out and gone wrong. In this, they're playing her as such a badass that, like,
Right.
I mean, at the level she's at.
Yeah.
I mean, she fucking shoots down.
You screw. I think at this point, at the level she's at, if you screw up, you die.
Yeah, I mean, Well, here's the thing,
they
because in
come
the
after
next
you.
scene that follows this whole craziness in the car is her building a bazooka. She comes out of the cornfield. There's a couple little kids sitting there, which is a great moment. It's a great scene with the kids. It's cute, and they play it great.
The girl's
little
cute.
girl's like, my dad's dead. My mom's dead. My dad's not here, and I'm 10. I'm in charge.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, look at you, kid. You're gonna, you're great.
You're going somewhere.
You're going somewhere, kid. You're gonna be president or in jail, whatever.
And
But,
Tulip's eating it up too.
yeah, she's like, oh, I see like a little, I like a little bit of me in you. Yeah,
exactly.
So she basically teaches them some basic pyrotechnics or weapon building, however you want to look at it.
Right.
And I think just realistically, she would have needed a lot more duct tape for that bazooka.
And a lot more time.
A little bit more time.
No, she only had 23 minutes.
Yeah, me and Bobby noticed that it was 23 minutes, and she...
In 23 minutes, she put together a bazooka with two kids who had no idea what they were doing and building while telling them a story and getting to know them leisurely. And
the sun went
the
down.
sun went down in 23 minutes as well.
Right. It was bright. It was a bright day as fuck.
Right.
And then
It
when
was
they come,
midday.
she puts them in the basement, and it's nighttime.
Right.
But hey,
Because on the phone, it's like ETA, 23 minutes.
Right.
It's like, okay, so we got 23 minutes. It's like
That's why she's all about it. It's a rush job.
I was waiting for MacGyver music.
Yeah. I thought it was going to be a lot of fast cuts with her doing the whole build. But no, she's just having this leisurely conversation.
Little duct tape ripping sounds as she's putting stuff together.
And there's like, there's a yellow cast in the room, so it is probably like, implied sun going down. But by the time it's done, it's like dark as night. But anyway, so she basically shoots down a helicopter that we have no idea is why it's chasing her.
Right.
And like
it's a helicopter and a bunch of people and everything. There's like Uzis involved.
And it's
the little kids just got grazed by like machine gun fire.
You know what I mean? And like, not for nothing, but we never hear about it again. And I'm just wondering if at any point Chef Root's going to be like, yeah, it was the craziest thing a couple of days ago.
No, actually, I saw online that that's...
Well,
that was
guys,
in Kansas.
Oh, that's a flashback. Right. Okay.
It says, not too long ago
then
is
Kansas.
the exact word.
Yeah, you're right.
I don't know if it says Kansas on the screen, but I read online that someone posted an article to clarify that was because they're billed on IMDb, those two kids, as Kansas boy and girl.
Oh, okay.
So,
that was a little bit further back. That's a little bit of just a flashback.
Earlier, like that week or that day, maybe, possibly. I don't know.
So then in general, it's just a completely random scene, I think, to show us that just people are on her ass, I think. And obviously to set up the chase for the map, this map that she's got to the mine gold, I guess. I mean, I don't know. We'll figure it out. You know what I mean? All right. So it goes to the helicopter crash, and then it goes to Jesse. We get a quick dad flashback where dad... I don't think he says it there. I think he says it later. I have it marked off. Yeah, but nothing really happens. It's just Jesse walking into the Quincannon meat processing and power.
Yes,
which is a great combo, I guess. So then we cut real quick to Russia, and the Genesis entity has struck again. This time it looks like it's some kind of satanic church or worship center for worship of the Satan. Mm-hmm. And
it was a Russian church, right?
Yeah, well, it was in Russia, but when the doors close, it's got a pentagram and the goat head. So, So in thinking about that, my thinking with Dom earlier was that it's got to be that since Genesis is as much good as it is evil, it's not calling out any chances. It's looking for the best candidate, no matter who it is.
Right.
Hence,
good or evil.
Hence, Tom Cruise. You know what I mean? So it's basically, so the Tom Cruise thing is obviously like a joke, it's a goof a little bit, Scientology, but maybe it's really about some kind of leadership kind of aspect too. Let's not get too crazy about it, but...
Well, he's supposed to be like next to the Pope of Scientology.
Yeah, he's actually
like...
He's like Xenu Light.
Yeah, pretty much. He's like one or two levels below, like...
Top dog, yeah.
Xenu God or
Did you ever watch the HBO? Anybody ever?
No, I just
Going Clear.
I learned everything I need to know about Scientology from watching South Park.
That's true too. That's all you really need to know. Okay, so moving on. So that's just another.
That's more than you need to know.
Fair enough. So that's just the whole Russian thing is just a moment where we get to see those two guys kind of just arrive and go inside, which is pretty much their MO for most of the episode. We cut to Jesse and Tulip in the car. They're having their little reunion moment finally. She mentions the map, that she's got one last job, and he knows it's a one last job thing. He finds the chomped up ear. And he's like, what is this? And she's like, that's my little piece of shawarma that fell out of my food. Seems like ever since Avengers now, shawarma is just a cultural thing that everyone talks about. I didn't know it was so damn popular. I think it might be a California thing, and that's why it's in every script. And it's not, and nobody else in the country.
Isn't that the Asian way of like rearranging furniture?
Very shawarma-fay. So let's go then to, she kind of gives a comment to him about his haircut, which I think some people are saying is a little bit of a nod to the fans who know that in his book, he's a little bit more of a long, grown-out kind of look.
It's a mullet.
Yeah, I guess it's a mullet. I mean, I know it's long on top and it's like pushed back, but the problem is that like it's just flat black. There's never any detail in it.
No, it depends on what point in the story because his haircut changes a little bit, but it's
does,
always long in the back.
And actually, in the very beginning of the book,
sometimes he's got length on the sides, sometimes he doesn't.
That's true too. That's the
difference between it being a mullet or not, I guess.
Yeah. Thanks for that. If anybody ever want to know mullet stuff, go to my brother Bob. He knows all about it.
That's right, I'm the mullet man.
The mullet man. So
I am mullet man. You can edit that.
Okay,
out
yeah,
later.
maybe I'll leave. Maybe I don't know. We'll see. Let it be a surprise. So. But anyway, she's there. Her storyline is going to be pressuring him into doing this job. And I got a feeling, even from seeing the preview for next week, or the next episode rather, I keep saying next week, so that that's her kind of storyline kind of thing. That's what's going to be keeping her. That's why she's there, or that's going to be her MO. That's going to be her little driving force of reasoning as she's in this town.
She's getting out of the dirty business to do treasure hunting.
Yeah, basically, she's just like, she loves Lara Croft. She's like, that seems like a thing I can do. And they build her up as such a badass.
Maybe
it's kind of what she is at this point. She's just like a criminal Lara Croft,
basically.
So
pretty much.
So then Jesse actually finally goes to visit Eugene, also known as Arseface, in one of the better moments of the episode.
My favorite.
The best part of that scene for me is when he offers to share his shake.
Yes. The shake that you've been seeing in the promos that looked like a strawberry shake is now revealed to be this meat, egg, protein.
Like raw.
Yeah, just everything's raw, just blended up in a bullet shaker. And then, so when Jesse comes there, Sheriff Root, Eugene's dad, finishes making it for him. Is like, here, it's his dinner. Go bring it to him. And then one of the best things that they do is they do this thing where Jesse's going up the stairs, and it's like he's going slow, and it's dark up there, and the music kind of comes in all creepy like, and then the door busts open, and he's like, hey, what's up, buddy? What are you doing? Sit down, chill, take a seat, whatever, man. What are you doing? And it's just like he's all full of energy. The music's playing in the background, and some hip hop going, and it's just like this whole contrast thing. It was a really funny little moment. Loved it. I feel like
the hug was awesome.
And the hug, by the time they're done, is great
Jesse's
stuff.
face.
Yeah, Jesse's face a couple times, and that whole thing, just trying hard to fucking sit through it.
But since we're on Arseface, what did you think of Arseface?
I was going to say that as much as that they've downplayed the look of him, it almost doesn't matter because the stuff you need is there, and the character. He's it works for me. The sound, the subtitles, the fact that the subtitles were on there.
Yeah.
Like, that was a big thing for me. You know what I mean? Because it was like, are they going to do it? Are they not? Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm glad they did.
They did his voice simple, though. They basically just made it sound like it was being muffled.
Yeah.
Instead of
no tongue.
Mutated,
Yeah.
So that you even without them, you could probably understand
I tried. So
I could understand most of it. When he got fast,
yeah,
that's when I had a problem.
Well, that's the thing. When he gets excited, when he gets really excited, yeah, that's definitely it. So on the rewatch, I looked away from the screen when he was talking to try and just suss it out. And yeah, you're right. It's like 75% of it's there.
Right.
You know what I mean? But when he does get excited, or his voice pitches up or down, or
Right,
you know what I mean? Too much excitement. Or going too low.
Right, but what do you think about his look? I mean, what about you, Dom? You haven't said.
I think he looks fine. I mean, I think he looks as Arseface-esque as he's gonna, as they're gonna be able to make him for the show. I mean, I don't really know. How much more he can get.
I think you had to change the hairstyle to be current, so the appearance changes automatically. He's a little bit more of a clean cut kid.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think when they did the face, it's a little thin, and you could see
the prosthetic,
the movement in it as he's talking.
I'm hoping that it gets better.
Yeah, that's got to get better.
Yeah, and if there's anything I've learned from some TV shows with
I'd like
something
to see
like that,
just a little more evidence of being shot in the head with a shotgun on the rest of his face too.
Yeah, I found also too with that it seemed like that was picking up his forehead, depending on the lighting, like what angle he was at. Sometimes it looked really bumpy and shit. I think it was maybe too blended in, so that when you were looking dead on at it, you really didn't see much. But then at certain angles, I was like, oh, that looks a little more gnarly than I thought on the forehead. Yeah, but not like in the comic.
It's like there's a sunken corner of it or something that you don't really see when you're looking on face on. Like it seems to be like there's a little circle there.
Yeah, he's supposed to have like a dent on his forehead anyway from the comic stuff. So one of the things in the comic though too is you got to remember is the way Steve Dillon draws him. In his more simplified, cartoonish kind of comic book style,
it's definitely gonna be different than the artwork.
Yeah, and you gotta remember too, like the Glenn Fabry stuff on Arseface, the cover work, is is just meaty looking. Like, you know, it's just, I mean,
ultra detailed.
Yeah, it's ultra detailed. You know what I mean? It's very textured.
Yeah.
And
to riff off what Bob said though about like how his appearance is a little bit different from the comic in terms of like being a clean cut kid.
Yeah.
You got to realize that Root himself, the sheriff, is much different in the show.
That's a fair point.
You know
too.
what I mean? Like he's in the comic, he's a complete scumbag.
Yeah.
Although we didn't get that much of him in the first episode, I can't imagine him being as shitty a person as he is in the comic.
Yeah, like he's the offspring.
You wouldn't
to dad relationship
he's
is different.
Actually
here.
taking care of the kid.
Yeah,
you know, he's making the
right.
shake. He's going that extra mile to make the shake for him.
Yeah,
in the
in the comic book,
even though it's a fucking raw meat and egg shake, he's still making it for him. In the comic book, he would not have done that.
He would not have done that in the comic book. He would
have just sat there and ignored his kid, stared in fucking space.
Yeah, that's basically how he. That's the dad in the comic.
And he's the reason why he eventually tries to
kill
take his life anyway.
That's why he does that with the shotgun anyway.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. I think
potentially
we have to,
anyway.
Yeah, because I have a feeling that they're going to tweak that too a little bit. And we'll see. We'll see how that goes.
He's a different type of person here. He's not he's not personally soured to the point where it's like my life sucks because of what he did.
Right. Yeah.
He blew his brains out and ruined my life.
Well, that's the thing too. Like I found in the comic that maybe it was how I remember it, and Dom was like, I don't know. I remember Arseface, like after he gets shot, like when we first see him, he is like this overly chipper kind of thing, and then as we follow him and he gets involved with Jesse and all these shenanigans, that he becomes obsessed about a couple of things and he becomes somebody else. But it's like, he was a dour kid who was bleak and whatever and a miserable fucking life, and then he goes to try and kill himself, and somehow coming out of that he's all like, hey, like I got this new like he's overcompensating, especially with his dad, and they didn't kind of get into any of that yet. That I want to see. I want to see Arseface doing that overcompensation to please his dad, because I feel like ultimately this show is setting up for the destruction of everybody, I feel like, in this town. Like, I feel like we got the preacher in a town full of people who are all shitty, and eventually he's not going to be able to help them all. And eventually they're all going to fucking die. That's my hope.
And anyone who's left is going to hate his guts.
Yeah, you know what I mean? That's the kind of thing. That's kind of like an overall thing. But we're going to do a predictions thing later on. So here's the thing. Let's barrel back through this real quick. Let's try and we'll speed it up. Okay, so he visits Arseface, and Dad makes him an arse shake. That's going to be my new phrase for that now. It's going to be called an arse shake. The kid thinks God is mad at him, and then Jesse tells him...
You all right there, man?
No, I just died. And then Jesse tells him that God doesn't hold grudges, which if you're a fan of the book, you know that he certainly does. Or if you've read the Old or New Testament, you know that he certainly does. But hey, we're not getting into all that because we ain't got time. So then it cuts to Jesse at the bar. And this is the fist fight with Donnie. So Jesse and Cass meet. Basically, Cass comes strolling in, fresh from the crater. Oh, I kind of skipped the crater thing.
Yeah, man.
Yeah,
the whole
you're right.
Fun part.
Yeah, you're right. Okay, so I did skip the crater thing, which was just a great.
Yeah, that was awesome. That was awesome. The scene opens at a crater with an umbrella over it.
Yeah, but the umbrella is like...
Yeah, but then you move, the umbrella moves, and you see that it's most of Cassidy.
Right.
In a pool of Cassidy.
In a pool, and he's all fucked. The bottle that he had
his
put...
intestines are like all over the place.
He is just splattered.
His legs are only like there.
Like, when they did the ketchup splat of the scene change... onto Jesse's play at the diner.
That's kind of...
You felt like it was just metaphor at that moment. You didn't realize that when we cut back to it, it was going to be quite literal. Like, you know what I mean? So, but one of the cool things is that, like, because I think the blood bottle that he had tried to save for himself was all wrecked or whatever. Now he's fucked because it's like, what do I do? I need some blood. Then all of a sudden this cow comes along and he's like, oh, well, hello.
Hello, come here, man.
I love how it had a paleo tag on it too. The cow.
Did it?
Yeah,
I didn't say it.
It was just a nice touch that I thought was fun.
Nice. So that was a great thing. So we didn't see him from then until he ends up at the bar with Jesse, and it's one of these things where he comes in, he orders a drink, he talks to Jesse just a little bit. It's basically like Jesse can't understand what the fuck he's saying, but neither can we really. Right. That's a thing with Cassidy too. Maybe we touch on real quick.
He's rambling about something about him being a preacher and something to do with a preacher back home or something.
I think so. I mean, there was a little bit of that. But just as I think they're doing a thing, because like I think every now and then, I might be wrong on this, in the books, characters are like, I don't understand what the fuck you're saying there, fucking Irishman. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he was asking what town he's in too. He's like, where am I? He's like, what do you mean? Where are you? He's like, what town, what county, what
state, whatever.
What zip code, where the fuck am I?
So, basically, what happens is Donnie and his reenactment regiment show up. And now Donnie's got a problem with Jesse because Jesse has spoken to his wife, basically on behalf of the kid. So, shouldn't have done that.
We should also say Mom looked Jesse right in the eye and said, no, Jesse, I love it.
Yeah. Basically, when Jesse's at the plant.
And she enjoys it.
Right. Yes. And, which was a thing I'm surprised it took Jesse so long to catch on to. Because when he...
Yeah, because she was like...
From the jump, when she starts talking about it, I got it.
Yeah, it was like, it's coming out a little too easy.
Yeah. And then eventually she no. She gets all coy about it, even though it was like, you were just not being coy about it, lady. Like, I don't get this change in conversation. Right. Once you realize that he's confused, now you're getting coy. But anyway, so one of the things that happens at the fight in the bar that's a little bit different, and we touched on it a little bit, is that Cassidy makes a phone call right before the fight breaks out.
Right.
And basically, he's talking to another guy with an Irish accent, and that guy's like, hey, well, I'll do what you can, just lay low for a while. You know what I mean? Right. And just as he's like, well,
I'll get there as soon as I can.
Something like that. And then he's like, oh, I need you to send me some, and before he gets to say money, the guy on the other line hangs up. So they're obviously planting some seed there a little bit. How much they'll get into it, I don't know. Maybe it was just like, hey, that's a logical thing he would do while stuck in a town. He would try and call somebody. I don't know. But they don't do anything for nothing. You know what I mean? On a TV show or a movie. So that must be a seed. So the bar stuff continues. The Donnie calls him a little, says, I know that the little snitch. I know who the little snitch was that told you about that. And that's actually what sets off Jesse. Don't be fucking hurting the kid. I'm going to make you sound like a bunny in a bear trap. And Donnie's like, oh, challenge accepted.
That was great.
And then basically he does it, snaps that dude's arm like it's nothing.
Well, he doesn't just snap his arm. He takes him on and his three friends.
Fair enough, yeah.
Who are all bigger than him. He pretty much manhandles them.
And has a great time doing it.
Yeah. And then he gets our friend, what's his name, Donnie?
Donnie, yeah.
Donnie, in an arm lock. And the sheriff comes in and says, hey,
preacher.
That's enough.
Cut it out.
He's like, I'm almost done here.
Snap.
And then you hear the sound of a bunny in a bear trap.
Yep. As close as I'll ever know it.
Yeah.
And so that's a fun scene. But basically what that gets to do, because Cassidy, the sheriff must have come in and seen Cassidy kick the chair under the other guy, and that was enough for Sheriff Root to do his job, I guess, that day, and puts them both in a fucking jail cell. And that's how these two really kind of start their first bonding moment. So in jail, they talk about Jesse coming back, and then that he kind of comes to the realization that it was just, between that and talking to Tulip out in the car earlier, that he's kind of come to the conclusion that, maybe this was just a bad idea coming back to this town. This town is fucked, and I ain't no good for it. The preacher thing's not working. So he's basically
tells the organ player,
I'm going to quit. I'm going to quit the church. So Betsy gets him out of the prison, the jail thing. He tells her he's going to quit. He is who he is what he says to her, which is an echo of what Tulip says to him earlier. We are who we are, meaning that the two of them are just always going to be kind of shifty fucking people.
Yeah. Kind of always be where trouble can be found.
There you go. And then Betsy drops Jesse off at the church. But after she breaks the iPad because she just needs to vent about how this guy's going to leave now, and her unrequited love is going to go unfettered or whatever. Yeah, my vocabulary failed me right now. But as Jesse's going up to go to the church, guess who calls? Ted. Ted again. Ted. Fucking Ted. This Ted guy.
Who's this Ted guy? Ted Bundy?
No, just the Ted that keeps talking.
Or maybe it's Ted the talking bear.
No, it's Ted, the talking parishioner of the church. So that guy.
Mr. Ted.
Mr. Ted. So Ted calls, more stuff about his mother, and Jesse's like, yeah, buddy, I'll talk to you. Hangs up the phone.
Yeah, Mr. Ted the talking horse.
So now we go to Jesse inside the church, which is finally the moment where Genesis and Jesse merge. They do their dance. So now back to what we were talking about earlier. I saw a funny thing online about how when Genesis comes in, it's like, oh, what is that, the fucking Predator? Because it's just like this watery kind of special effect kind of thing. But I did like the fact that, Jesse's got this whole I'm finally broken, God give me a sign kind of thing. I'm looking for forgiveness, and then God gives him nothing. And he says, well, fuck you then. And he literally says, fuck you, but they knock it out. They don't bleep it out, but they knock out the F-bomb. And which was nice. Like, you know what I mean? At least it was like, we're going to leave it in, we're going to knock it out. It's not like Walking Dead where they actually changed the line of dialogue of one of the more significant lines of dialogue in that show, just to not have the F. I like that role. I like that move.
And one thing that I also loved about that scene was how, if you remember from the comic, Genesis never grows out of its state of being a baby. It's just always a baby for all eternity. So in the scene, you could hear it crying as it's slowly moving up to Jesse. You could hear the baby crying.
And they were doing some of that in the very open, too. Like, in between these screeches it's making, like, you can hear there's a baby sound mixed in with it. It's not as upfront as it is later on, I think, though. Right. It's not as obvious, Right.
But it was much later on in the story. In the comic, this really isn't a spoiler for anyone who's making their way towards the end of the book. But there is a scene where the baby just, cries out loud, and you see it.
Right. Yes.
And there's a big splash page throughout 2 pages of the comic. Right. And it's just Genesis in baby form crying out loud. Okay. And that's what it made me think of. And it's cool.
A nice touch to these things. You know what I mean? And obviously, some of it's these people who feel like a lot of these things that they don't have laid out are like bon mots or little tosses to the readers. They are, but those things are like, they're not the things that they think are the tosses to us. Right. Like, you know what I mean? They think that by withholding some information, that's like some way of like giving us a thing, where it's like, no, that's just how a lot of shows are built nowadays, where like, they withhold stuff. Like, if this wasn't based on a thing, what would you complain about it not, like, you know what I mean? Like, when people, I was talking about this at work, when Game of Thrones comes out, people are like, oh, this is made for the readers of the book, like, because I don't get it. It's like, well, if it wasn't made from a book or a property, what would you say then if you didn't get it? You would then blame it on the storytelling or something else. And meanwhile, it's like, no, this is just not, this isn't Channel 4 TV show. This isn't a Channel 2 TV show where it's like, we got to make it simple. We got to make it super easy. We're not going to challenge anybody. So this is a show where, like, I'm not saying it's super high quality, but it is trying to do that. It is trying to make you think a little bit, trying to make you suss it out in your head, or make it extra rewatchable. Because I feel like that's the thing. When we rewatched their work, some scenes landed better. Some scenes worked more because now I had, some more familiarity with it. And I could see what they were trying to do. Of course. Sometimes it goes by too fast when you're excited for a TV show, and it's just like, you just...
Yeah, that happens a lot with Walking Dead and Game of Thrones for me.
Yeah, when it finally comes
back. And I'm sure once Preacher really establishes itself, it'll do the same thing, so...
Fair enough. So, back to the breakdown. We've got... so Ted calls him out there, and then he says, fuck you, to God, and then Genesis comes and pays him a visit. Like, it approaches him, it sizes him up, like we were saying earlier, and then boom, it merges with him. But we cut now to a dad flashback where dad actually... Or it's a dream where dad actually says to Jesse... Be one of the good guys because there's too many of the bad guys line.
One of my favorite quotes from the book.
It is one of the best quotes in the whole thing.
Yeah, Dad's up to his shoulders in dirt.
Yeah. So
He's
this is
buried up into his head in dirt, basically.
So this is a change I'll bring up here is that, they changed Dad to a preacher now. So I saw somebody online who was like, no, it's really not working for me. Dad was supposed to be a preacher who, Dad was a former Marine who liked Westerns. And I'm like, well, does that mean that he can't still be a former Marine who liked Westerns, who then became a preacher at some level? And then somebody else, a third person, saw it and was like, maybe that's just a further extension of the reason why Jesse became one. So if you know why Jesse became one, that's tied into some family shit, that maybe in this version, his dad was also pressured into being one. Or took it upon himself to do it for some other reason. We don't really know why they kind of spun down.
That could be easily woven into that part of the story.
I feel like, while some people are probably seeing that as a big change, they don't know what the consideration was for that change and how it's going to play out later. I just want people to kind of look at some stuff and be like, it's obviously been considered. You just don't have all the pieces for it yet, kind of a thing. Like, don't shit on it. You know what I mean? Too hard.
Yeah, that could Garth Ennis is involved in this, so that could be something that he meant to put in the book, but for some reason or another didn't put in.
Supposedly there's a bunch of stuff like that.
And regretted, so he wanted to make that tweak.
Supposedly there's a little bit of stuff like that. And supposedly, like, when they send him out scripts, he sends back ideas, and sometimes they run with that shit. What were you going to say, D?
No, just to throw out some theorizing there on
sure.
Jesse's dad. Just, I'm not going to spoil how he actually dies in the comic.
Right.
Because I know a few of our friends aren't exactly at that point yet.
Fair enough.
Agent Palmer. But wouldn't it be crazy if, we know that the potential big bad, so to speak, for this season is going to be Odin Quincannon,
right?
Presumably.
Sure.
So I think it would be interesting to have that be set up where, in the past, he was the guy who actually, gave the order to pull the trigger on Jesse's dad.
Make it a little more personal.
Yeah.
On that level.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
because we know why it's personal with Jesse in the Odin Quincannon storyline eventually in the comic series.
So
and it has nothing to do with his dad.
Right. So if you're all moving it up,
and the reason why it's personal in the comic, I don't think is going to be set up on the show because that character isn't presented to us yet.
Well, that character comes much later in the book series anyway.
So
it's one of those unconsidered characters. It all sounds like, oh, right, I never even thought of that person.
Right.
So
I think it would make for
a little bit of them being able to weave it together a little tighter. This whole backstory of the town and why we're all locked into this town a little bit.
Right. And if he really is the guy who, runs shit.
Yeah.
In the town.
Right.
Like he does in Salvation.
Fair enough.
In the book.
Yeah.
It makes sense.
Yeah. No, that he'd be ingrained, like, his family and all that stuff. So I could see that. You know what? That's a very TV thing.
And knowing Jesse's dad, he's much like Jesse, who is, all about self-righteousness and not letting anyone push you around.
Fair enough. Yeah.
If, there's a local mob boss who's trying to tell the local preacher to do what he wants,
right?
I can't see
him that going
John
over well.
Custer standing for it.
Yeah, absolutely not. And it would be an interesting way to fold it all together. I could see them doing that. That feels like a very
TV
TV
it would be a mistake to me. I mean, I'm sitting here now saying that it would be cool, but at the same time, it's like I really want them to do the way they did it in the comic, which I can't see them doing right now. And we know that he dies.
Yeah.
Already. So
I'm wondering if maybe he might have taken on the priesthood or whatever as a last kind of resort kind of thing. And as much as these people are like, oh, it was your father's church, was it really? Like, did the guy fucking build it, or did he just take it over from somebody? And who knows what that story really is. So, I'm trying not to write it off completely just yet.
Well, it is a church that can hold about 12 people, so he could have built it.
And for a town...
with maybe 2 or 3 trees, that would have been enough.
And for a town, not for nothing, it doesn't seem like there's many people in this town.
No.
It's a very small town.
Very small.
If I just hope that's just like not everybody goes to see Jesse's sermons or something.
Yeah.
Not a lot of churchgoers maybe. So back to the breakdown. So we get Dad's line finally, and then Jesse wakes up. It turns out he's been sleeping for 3 days. And they do this moment where she asks him if he's all right, and they do this weird thing which I interpret like this, but the camera stops and it focuses on the sunlight coming in the room and the dust motes a little bit, and then Jesse does this thing where he's like, am I? Almost like am I all right? Something's different or something's weird kind of moment. So I felt like that was a moment we're supposed to kind of get this sensation from Jesse that, like, something's different. Right. Something's changed. Like, his perspective is a little, or at least waking up for that moment, it was like a little bit of a thing he had to shake off. It wasn't just a conk on the head. It was like, don't forget now, something's in him. You don't know what it is. I thought it was like more of a, like he was seeing the dirt in the air, and not like it was more of a, like he could see close up, into the air and see what was actually in it floating around. Right. Yeah. I took it that definitely as a little bit more metaphorical, like, you know what I mean, where it was definitely supposed to be about, like, just eyes waking. I think
it was just kind of like letting the viewer know that sums up.
Yeah, I think it was just a subtle way to try to be like, don't forget.
It could be a little less subtle. That was very subtle.
It was
really,
definitely a thing
really
where it's like you look at it like, what is that?
Really subtle.
Like, why take that moment? You know what I mean? Almost kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Like, I think that for most people it would be a thing where they wouldn't bother trying to read into it and figure out why. Like, why is that there? Like, you know what I mean? Right. Whereas for me, I'm like, well, it's got to be there for a reason. So anyway, he gets out of the bed and whatnot. But if he goes to the church, as we wrap up close to the end of the episode here, he goes to the church, and Ted's there again. Oh, Ted.
But he's getting dressed on the way.
Yeah, correct.
Right?
Uh-huh.
And that's when he loses the paper, right?
No, that's in the opening of the episode.
That's in the opening.
That's in the opening. He drops the one piece, and that's why I'm saying I feel like that's what throws him off in his first sermon in the first episode, and why he's all like bungly, like I don't,
Right.
So he goes to now after he wakes up, he goes to church, and fucking Ted is there again, Talkie Ted, and with the cheese sandwiches and shit, the cheese sandwiches or whatever he's talking about at that point, colostomy bags or whatever. But this is the
moment.
moment.
It was cheese sandwiches at that point.
Again, because I know it was cheese sandwiches once, and then like in the diner it's colostomy bag, and then it's just more nonsense. But from Ted, it almost doesn't even matter. But eventually, what happens is that Jesse uses the word for the first time, and we mentioned, I brought it up a little bit earlier, but I felt like, they obviously did a thing. They held the camera on him. They did a little slow racking on him, a little bit to to show something's going on there, but. He basically tells Ted, look, you gotta just talk to her, tell her the truth, be brave, tell her the truth, and open your heart. That's to her.
Open your heart to her.
Just be brave, tell her the truth, and open your heart. So Ted turns around, and it's his mantra as he's walking away. I just gotta be brave, tell her the truth, and open my heart.
And go to her.
Right. It's gotta be right. Go to her, be brave, tell her the truth, open your heart. And so that's kind of like a thing going on in the background as we then cut to Jesse giving what is supposed to be his last sermon because he's going to quit. And even as it's going, this is a thing now that he's actually able to kind of talk a little bit loosely and freely, and he doesn't have paperwork with him. He's just kind of riffing on it, and he slowly just kind of comes to realize that even though he's admitting to being a bad preacher, and because he's going to quit because he doesn't do it well. Like, it's not working or he can't really do the job. He can't be the preacher they need.
He's not motivated. He doesn't believe, whatever it is.
So, but basically he turns around in the last second and then he basically reaffirms his commitment to them. And and eventually he says, and then he will speak with the word of God. But that's when we cut back to Ted. And Ted is taking it quite literally, gets on a plane.
Yeah.
Goes all the way to Florida. Goes to his mother's retirement home, stops off at the cake table, which I didn't really catch right away, but Don pointed out, and then goes over to the table where his mother's at and basically proceeds to tell her the truth. Mom, you got to stop calling me. You got to stop bothering me. You can't give me a hard time about everything that I'm doing in my life, and he was being brave. He told her the truth. And then he decided to open up and give her his heart.
I got to open up and give my heart to you. And jabbed the giant
cake
knife into his chest.
Yeah.
And quickly cut out his heart and then died.
Yep. And sprayed his blood all over his mother, and his mom screamed.
With his heart sitting there right on the table.
It was so twisted. So that's kind of like the way the episode ends. More or less, we cut back to Jesse. Jesse gives one last line or two, very preachy stuff.
And decides not to quit.
Well, yeah, he decided not to quit, but they just this last line, this little punch on top of what he just saw, and that's why I'm here. I'm here to save you all.
Right.
And then as a coda, we cut back to the guys. We mentioned this before. The last scene is actually we cut back to those two guys that have been searching and following, and one of them eats a tea bag for some weird reason, but the other guy comes over and he's like, "This is it. This is where it's at." They get out of the truck and they are outside, basically the dirt road that Jesse's church is at the other end of.
Right.
They're at the All Saints Congregational sign. Outside the where the road meets up, and that kind of like really just wraps up the episode. I feel
64 minutes with what was it, Dom? Like 2 million minutes of commercials.
About. Felt that way.
It did. It really did.
Really did.
I think that's because the show was moving at such a slow pace.
Yeah.
Felt like there was about 4 minutes.
Everything felt like it just felt like everything slowed down.
Yeah. I felt like there was about 6 minutes of show, 4 minutes of commercial.
Well, it was 64 minutes actually run time of the episode, and it's an hour and a half time slot. So they jammed in. Hey, you do the math. I'm not good. We established this earlier.
26.
Thank you, sir. I refuse to do math on any of my shows. Fuck that. Just saying.
I need my 2 shows.
See that, people? Episode 3 around here. The personalities really come out. We're gonna jump to some emails real quick. That's how we're gonna wrap it up. And I think one of the things that we're gonna. I just want to remind people that, we're doing a live thing next week. I just felt like saying it. Okay, so let's go into these emails here, kids. Thanks for sending them. If you want to send emails to us, you can send them to pvp@wickedtheory.com. That's the email address. So, from D. Dawson.
Our friend D.
My friend D. I was definitely interested in watching Preacher. The trailers looked awesome, but your first PvP episode intrigued me to actually read the comic.
Hey.
I have finished book 1, and I am halfway through book 2 now. Just so you know, this is the first comic I've ever read, and I love it. So thanks. I'm looking forward to the first
welcome.
Preacher show tonight and your next PvP episode. You guys rock. D. And the D is a chick. Because last week I was like, is it a chick or is it a dude?
Thanks, D. Really appreciate it.
I knew there was a chick in the picture, but I wasn't sure, you know? But thanks, D, so much for writing in. Thank you even more for picking up the books and taking the ride with us. We're happy that you love the books.
And we're happy with us.
We're like, we love the comic so much that like I take it as a personal compliment, even though I have nothing to do with the book itself.
right.
If I suggest it to someone and they actually enjoy it and go out and get it.
Oh, it's like a little personal achievement. Whenever you can get anybody to like, here, listen to this CD. Here, go watch this movie. It feels like
I agree with that, but I'm just saying this particularly much more than others. You know,
sure.
Well, that's the quality of it.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just it can speak to just about anybody if they're open-minded enough when they read it.
It's a thing that I hear from a lot of people though too about this book. It's like, oh, when I try to expose somebody to comics, that's the book I give them.
Oh yeah, I always tell people.
Yeah, I mean it's the only. I mean, not that it's the only one worth reading, but I feel like it's the easiest one for people maybe to kind of.
If an adult comes up to another adult and asks them what comic should I read,
it's one of the first ones.
Like, okay, well, how gory can you handle it?
Do you like Tarantino and Stephen King?
Yeah.
Because they had a baby, and it's
how
right
much
in this
do you
book.
love God?
How blasphemous can you handle stuff?
Preacher.
Honestly, man,
go for
the
Preacher.
book isn't even that blasphemous at times.
You know what? You're right.
But when it gets blasphemous,
it's pretty firm. You know what it is? It's not blasphemous like I think people perceive what that definition will give them.
I'm fairly
you're
I'm not
pretty religious.
I'm not a religious person, but like
you know,
I believe in shit, and this doesn't offend me at all.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. I think for us, being city boys, maybe we don't offend
a little
bit
desensitized.
That, and maybe we don't offend as easily with the religious stuff.
Yeah.
You know, as much as you may have gone to a lot of church in your life, I don't know if you are steeped into it.
Debatable.
I might have seen a basket go by.
When I was young and my mother could control my actions, yes.
So here's one from Steph Muniz, co-host of Gotham Lights podcast.
Hey, Steph.
Howdy, fellas. So how great was that? I'm not going to waste any time. Let's get into this. I can see how some people might not be happy with this continuity, but fuck continuity. I loved it. She's obviously talking about episode 1.
Right.
The humor was great. The action was great. The acting was great. I love the unexpected. It's better to be surprised and really excited about what's going to happen next. My mom watched the show with me, and just from the previews alone had me gushing about how excited I was. She was interested in watching it, knowing nothing about the story or the characters. She cracked up so hard at the beginning with the church sign, open your ass and your holes to Jesus, that I had to laugh again, even though I'd seen it in the sneak peek, just because of her reaction, which is great. This is a show that I wish our mom... I don't know if she's watched it. I doubt it because it's on a 10.
You should send her a text.
I really have to have one of the kids watch it with her or something, because they handle the internet stuff over there and be like, hey, Taryn, get grandma and make her watch this.
Make her watch like the first 12 episodes. Binge watch it on the battery.
So Steph sees over here. She continues. The Tulip. I gotta power through this because we're running a little late. So the Tulip car scene was still badass and led to even more badassery. I know Tulip is a blonde in the comics, but I have to admit I can relate to the brunette much better. Steph's a brunette.
She is.
Yeah.
Yes.
I also really liked the actress. Ruth Negga was great in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I will debate that. So I'm okay with the altered appearance and the slight change to her introduction. I actually preferred seeing her tough and strong and smart right off the bat, as opposed to the comic where it was more of a slow burn before you really got a sense of how badass Tulip actually is. I agree with that. I can only imagine that her future scenes are going to get insane in this show. I think so. Speaking of...
You were actually pretty high on that yourself.
Yeah. So speaking of insane, she says, Cassidy's fight in the airplane. How fucking cool was that? First, it's all drinks and blow. All they were missing were the hookers, but then it turns into a mile-high bloodbath. They didn't stand a chance. Those guys didn't stand a chance sober. The squishy guts and the cow attack in Cassidy's scene was probably my favorite Cassidy scene in this episode. When your umbrella fails, grab a cow. Okay, so this is getting way too long, but I can't help it. At least she's honest. I'll wrap things up by going straight to the end. I'm sure I'm not alone when I say this is I was expecting the comic book ending. Genesis shows up in Anvil after exploding a couple of priests, merges with Jesse, and that's it. 3 days later, Jesse uses the word for the first time and doesn't quit the church. Nothing happens to the church, and I was okay with that. I'm super curious what that means for our characters, with Jesse remaining in Anvil, at least for now. I tweeted right after the ending, that's interesting. That is definitely not the ending I was expecting, but I liked it. A really good premiere, unquote. She tweeted that at the official Preacher AMC
I saw
account,
that she got a response,
and they said interesting and unexpected. Sounds about right. That's playing some. That's a pretty political kind of response there. I'm not mentioning this to brag, but the fact that this proves they aim to veer and curve from the comic. I'm okay with this. If every twist and change is handled as well as those in the first episode have been. So this is going to work, and it's going to be fantastic. That's all from me. I'm sorry. I'm not sorry. You're a weird friend, Steph. Steph.
Love you.
Love you, baby. Thank you so much for the email. And
yes,
she actually hit a couple of things in there that I wanted to get to during the course of this, and I just never got to I had to make good notes of my thoughts. I knew we were going to spend so much time doing a recap.
Yeah.
And then we're going to go to Agent Palmer. All right, who didn't see this coming? All right, kids. Our longtime friend, Agent Palmer, to all the members of the All Saints Congregational, known as Preacher vs. Preacher. I know there's a lot you're going to discuss, so let's get to the comments and questions. When Tulip leaves the kids, the smiles on their faces. I imagine that's what your faces looked like, just dumb smiles. Then you probably watch it again, and I wonder if your face has changed, or when you watch it again, will your faces change? I think this kid's stoned. Speaking of Tulip, should anyone argue for better female role models in TV? She's filling some of the void, don't you think? Kind of like a Black Widow, but a bit rougher around the edges. He's right. There are women on TV, but I think badass women right now on TV are few and far between. I mean, there are a lot of high, powerful kind of shows with women in the lead, and they're like, president or secretary of state, or they run their own law firm or whatnot. But there's nobody really stomping heads.
Right.
Not even on cable. Outside of Game of Thrones,
Right.
I would say there are like basically no badass women on TV.
Elektra.
Fair enough.
Supergirl.
Like I said, no badass women. All right. Okay, I do not want to install that now. We will do it later. Thank you, Google, or whoever you are. I'll remind you later. Okay, so he wants to know... Wait, I have to applaud the music selection, all on point, at least to me. Your thoughts? Yeah, I like the music stuff. It was all great. It was all...
I like the song at the end. Fitting.
Yeah. I think there was nothing that stuck out as, okay, that's a little awkward or weird. The You're So Vain, playing on during the cornfield fight scene was kind of nice touch.
Corn cup.
Yeah.
Corn cup.
Well, I think that works because we all know that Tulip is always thinking about Jesse.
Yes, true. So there's the whole Carly Simon, Warren Beatty kind of thing in the background to that song.
Right,
There's an underlying metaphor.
Right.
Nice. I didn't even think of that. Good point, Bob. Me and you really showing our age.
Because she's always thinking about him, and actually we don't at that point we don't actually know that on the show.
Right.
But we know that about Tulip. So she's always
we
thinking
don't know,
about Jesse.
but we do know.
There you go. Now you know. So his next point here is, so what kind of cheese do you guys like on your sandwiches? Because Ted was all about the cheese sandwiches.
Well, Ted was all about the Swiss. I'm not a fan of Swiss.
No.
I'm cheddar. I'm a cheddar guy.
Is that as funky as you get with cheese? Because cheddar is like right there. It's a sharper cheese. It's not like American cheese. It's a little funkier.
Well,
not
American is like it's cheddar, but it's unfinished.
No, you're right though. It is like a low.
It's a low grade cheddar.
It's considered cheddar.
It's a quick cheddar.
I mean, I
like a little mozzarella. You like a little mozzarella?
Of course. I mean, fucking.
I'm Italian.
I'm from Staten Island.
I'm from New York City. What do you mean? You don't even have to be Italian to just be obsessed with mozzarella. Okay.
You're Italian. You got to have a thing for cheese.
That's true. Cheese and bread. It's all about cheese and bread.
Cheese and bread.
And if you have some sauce in there,
I'm Italian. I sit down and I gotta have bread in 30 seconds.
That's true. Yes, I've heard that bit. So,
That's
okay.
a Sebastian Maniscalco bit.
Yes. Yeah. I've credit where credit is due.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure, he says now, I'm pretty sure a coffee bar wouldn't be enough to get you guys into church, but what would? I'm going to let him know that we're really not going to be doing questions like we do on the other show.
Take it easy.
The rando questions. Hey, what do you think about the color blue? We're going to keep it to the theme here. But what would get me into church? I don't know. Usually, it's only.
What do you think? Maybe a pop bar for you?
Yeah, like a hookah lounge, or just a friend getting married, or christening.
Hookah lounge would be perfect because you could smoke whatever you want in the room.
Oof. any question that he writes that starts out, this is a dangerous question. This is a dangerous question to be asking you guys, but still, if you could have it all up in your own ways, proofread, kid, yet still different from the books, what would you have done differently? Well, I think for the most part, we would all have... It's fair to say, without getting too crazy long about it, we all would have kind of stayed more consistently with the original book. I understand I probably would have done something setting up the town similarly, maybe, and ending the season kind of where they're probably going to set it up. But all the backstory shit and jigging and moving that all around and shifts to that stuff, I kind of would have left the same. I don't know if I would have went 10 episodes before they leave the town, though. I probably would have done it like halfway through the season. I understand the need to kind of build Jesse up. So let's show him as a preacher a little bit. I would have probably went like 4 or 5 episodes, and then, boom, let's start the road trip.
I don't see the point of it at all. The whole 10 episodes of them.
I could deal with it
because I like the way it went in the
book.
In the book,
Yeah,
I mean, there was no reason to change it, and you get enough backstory as you go. That you don't need to have this filler. This to me seems like it's. This
is budgetary. This I feel like is budgetary to stay in this town.
Best
and
thing to do. You want to save your budget. Don't do these 10 episodes. Go right to the first comic book.
Skip right to season 2.
There you go. Right.
Well, the thing is that the show has to.
You're cutting out a whole wasted season anyway.
Right, but that season's going to cost more money than they're willing to spend now. The show has to prove itself in a way. Like, you know what I mean? That's the thing. That's how TV tends to work.
Yeah.
Like,
okay.
And then in
I
season
can understand
3,
that, but
then in season 3 they'll fuck them and cut the budget, which is going to be great to see because that's usually what happens too. Sometimes in season 2 and season 3 they start fucking cutting the budget, and that's why you see all these tiffs and these people quitting shows and walking off behind the scenes because all of a sudden networks are like, oh, it's making money now. Let's make even more by giving you half the budget. And it's like, oh, okay, we're shooting everything on a set this season. And that's why you get season 3 of Walking Dead where it's like, granted, the prison is in the comic, but the network was like, oh, we just have to build a set and you guys are going to stay inside for 20 episodes? Yeah. Mint. Yeah. Loving it. So, I don't know. But for general purpose, we would definitely stick to the source material a little tighter.
Right.
Quite a bit tighter, to be honest.
Yeah, I would not even do this season. And if the season's going to hold me personally, it's going to have to start moving a lot friggin' fast.
No, yeah, I know. Okay, so this is a dangerous question, right? We did that one. So things escalate. That's what these things do. They escalate.
Is it going to escalate to the end of this question?
I'm hoping. To the end of this email? Oh, man, I'm hoping. They escalate. Is that what you want, kid? Boy, do I hope they escalate.
Yeah.
This dude just wrote random thoughts and stuffed them all in here. Just saying. So seriously, though, he's wrapping it up with, will any of you be attempting to recreate and enjoy Arseface's dinner, quote unquote, the Arse Shake, from the pilot? And please Periscope that if you do. I will not. The one thing that I do find weird is that the kid was basically eating like some weight gainer kind of regimen kind of thing, like all protein. The dudes do that shit. I didn't see him carrying any dumbbells, but maybe he is workout obsessed.
Yeah, well, maybe the cake and ice cream shake is going to come later.
Fair enough. But Ian Coletti, the kid who plays Arseface, I've seen him in interviews. He looks like he might go to the gym a little bit.
Possible.
It's possible. So I'm afraid he's going to be too bulked up at some point to play Arseface. But so before I go, he says, before I go, you should only listen to the formal.
Where's he going to go? He never leaves his house.
That's well, he doesn't have to because we go there. Before I go, you should only listen to quote unquote formal complaints about this show. That's it. Don't quit on us. Palmer out. Palmer, thank you very much. Despite the goofing on you, I did a little bit.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for not only
absolutely
sending the email, but for your behind the scenes help on things. You're I don't want to say you're a cog in the machine, but
you're a gentleman and a scholar.
Gentlemen, and a writer. If anybody's curious about Agent Palmer, you can go to agentpalmer.com. Anybody's curious about Steph, you can check out the Gotham Lights podcast. D. Dawson, I don't know what you do. Maybe one day I'll figure that out. But you can go check out D. Dawson on Twitter. So, folks, ladies, gentlemen, thank you for listening to the to our first true episode, not a warm-up, a real episode that we've done of Preacher vs. Preacher. I think
so. Episode 1.3, we'll call it.
Yeah, we can call
it. Hope it lived up
episode
to your
3
expectations.
/ episode 1,
if there were any.
Do we have any predictions or anything going into? I mean, we kind of already did a little bit, like we kind of because it's about loose moving forward.
the season's going to start moving faster, or it's going to lose me. That's my prediction.
Okay. Do you have anything else? Maybe that's tangible?
I have a feeling
that I can't, anything else I really can't predict.
Fair enough.
Because I have no idea what the hell they're doing now.
Fair enough.
I have a feeling that people that feel like Bob, and kind of me and him kind of feel the same way also, and I think you're kind of in the same boat as us, are going to feel a bit more paid off after the second episode. I think that shit isn't going to necessarily go right into the category of like canon from the books.
Fair enough.
But I think there's going to be shit from the second episode on sprinkled into the show that might not necessarily be exact storyline from the comic, but will have payoff and relate in some shape or form.
To rephrase
what goes on in the book.
To rephrase what you're saying a little bit, that people are going to see some stuff next episode that they kind of wanted to see in this episode. No?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I didn't want to get that specific about it because we did read some spoilers.
So let's put it like this, kids. Don't go to the IMDb for Preacher unless you want stuff to really kind of be spoiled for you, which way the show is going to go in the episodes to come.
Right.
Because they kind of give it away.
Bob's gonna have a raging fucking boner at that episode too, if that's the case.
Yeah. All right. Fair enough. There's things to get excited about in an episode.
That's fine. My thing isn't give me stuff from the comic as much as it's at this point with what's gone on. Right. I don't need this extra stuff, but if you're gonna give me extra stuff, don't make me make me wade through 10 episodes of the stuff.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Don't make me wade through 10 episodes that feel like the first 2 episodes of Fear of the Walking Dead.
Right.
All right, you know what I mean. It's
a little slower. It's a little slower for you.
Yeah, you're asking me to digest brand new material when I'm expecting it to be like a book that I've been holding in canon for 20 plus years.
Fair enough.
And you're asking me to wade through a whole season worth of it.
Well, 10 episodes.
Well, okay. Well, that these days is a season.
Well, I mean, it's it's 10 episodes. Malleable. It's malleable. I think what constitutes a season.
All right. So you asked me to wade through 10 episodes of it.
Yeah. No, it's still a lot. Don't get me wrong.
Don't do that. All right. And if you're gonna do that, give me something.
Yeah.
You can make the ride worth it.
Yeah.
Right now.
Yeah.
I wasted 64 minutes of my friggin' life.
Oh wow! I didn't know you. I didn't know you hated it
because of the end, the way it ended.
Oh.
It told me that this thing was going to drag the hell out.
Right.
You know what I mean? I enjoyed everything before that, and I was okay with it.
Yeah, right. That was like the bad.
But that was like, all right. If this is how things are going to go at this point, then I'm done. This is why I'm waiting till end episode 3.
Good call.
But I want to.
I do hear
the pace has to get better.
To mention this to you and to other listeners, I do hear that episode 4 is kind of the make it or break it point for fans. So 3 may not be exactly the mark. Maybe 3 will end with a point where it's like, oh, okay, maybe number 4.
See. Well, we'll see what's going to happen. That's
fair enough.
That's how I generally do things.
3 episode rule, and that's a rule a lot of people actually stick to. I keep seeing pop up in the Twitter feeds. 3 episodes to really kind of show a feel, and it's a thing for comics too. A lot of people have that for a rule. 3 issues to get a feel.
Me too.
So, kids, let's remind everybody of a couple of things. Let's remind them that they can send emails to pvp@wickedtheory.com. They can follow this show, at Preach Verse Preach. That's Preach VS Preach. They can hear the show. If they don't like where they're hearing it now, they can catch us on Stitcher, iTunes, and Google Play Music. Subscribe to us, rate us, and review us, please. We'll be using those for promos. And if they want to hear what we do on the other show, that's the Wicked Theory podcast. And next week, we're going to do a live episode where we kind of just all bullshit and have a good time and maybe just discuss further and tear it up or build it up, tear it down, whatever. But that's going to be on Mixler.com /wicked-theory. But I'll be putting up links on the PvP Twitter account for people to go to that and to sign up now and log in or whatever. It's just a Facebook thing.
Yeah,
you don't have to go crazy.
It's a whole chat thing that goes on. A lot of people. It's a good time.
Mm-hmm. We've done it before. I did it for a 24-hour podcast we did way back when, and some of the other shows that we cross associate with do it all the time. We've done a couple episodes on a regular show.
And anyone who wants to vent about the episode for whatever reason, positive or negative, this is an awesome opportunity.
There you go. All right, kids. Thanks so much for listening. We're going to see you in a week. Anybody got Dom? People can follow you on Twitter at
Dom_Tory. That's TORRE.
You know I love it when you spell it. Bob.
At Bob WTPC.
There you go. You can follow me at Wicked Theory, and we'll be here waiting for you kids.
Yeah. Just want to say thanks for listening.
Sure.
And stick with us. Stick with the show. Give it a shot.
Mm-hmm.
Go out and get those books, and just enjoy.
A little note: Palmer's got the next. He bought the rest of the books.
Cool.
He's got them all coming in one package.
That's what I like to hear.
That's it. Love it. All right, kids. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks for listening.
Now the lesson is over, and the killing's begun. There was a time of the preacher in the year of '01, when you think it's all over, it's only begun.